Hi, good evening, everybody. Hey, welcome. It's good to have you here this evening. Uh, Thanks for coming back. I appreciate it. If you're a first time viewer, hit that like button. Share if you feel like it. Anyway, if you missed the live stream, that's cool. You just go to the live section on my channel, and you can see it again. So I appreciate you being here. Well, we are on the cusp of the 4th of July weekend here in the United States. And while I was doing my news scour yesterday morning over multiple cups of coffee, and by the time I finish reading my news in the morning, I'm wired. I'm ready to go. But there were a number of Fourth of July related headlines in the news that had to do with a decline in the feeling of pride among Americans about their country and about being Americans. Some of the headlines read like American pride slips to new low. National pride is declining in America. American pride drops to an all-time low. Americans have never been less proud to be an American. Uh, a Gallup poll data reveals that as national pride plunges, Trump's America looks less great than ever. And in these articles, there appears to be clear generational differences in American pride, and that with each new generation, um, we find that they are less likely or significantly less likely than the previous one to say that they are proud to be an American. Right. So as younger citizens become old enough to become socially, politically aware and active, more and more are saying, and it's up to 48% now, more and more are saying that they are not proud of the United States. So they're not proud of their country. They're not proud to be an Americans. And why is this happening? Now, I have an idea as to why it's happening, but in that survey, most Americans across the political spectrum said that they were disappointed or that they were frustrated with the nation's politics. And I would add that there's an increasing number of people that are feeling disenfranchised from the country's government, from their ability to make a difference in their own lives through their government or by their government. And many are quickly becoming disgusted with the entire system. But I think that there's also another factor that wasn't included in the polling, and that's the factor that I want to discuss with you tonight. And that factor is a toxic nationalistic hubris or chauvinism that is isolating the United States from the global community, and it's dividing our society here at home. And I want to begin with a couple of definitions, right? I want to define what patriotism is as opposed to nationalism. And those two things do intersect at some levels. In fact, they used to be, uh, uh, according to the dictionary I read, they used to be uh, can you say a little more they shared a lot more space in a Venn diagram than they do now. We find that patriotism and nationalism are beginning to be two separate things, and so I want to discuss both of those and how this nationalism, this this hubris, right, this belligerent nationalism is really not only tearing apart American society, but it also is also isolating the United States from the rest of the world. And it's getting pervasive. It's pervasive in our foreign policy now. It's pervasive in the way that we set our domestic budgets, and it's pervasive in with the in the political divide that's tearing our working class apart, which by the way is by design, because if we're fighting each other, we can't come together and go after the real enemy, right? So I want to talk about these two things. Well, let me get started. I'm rambling, but let me get started with what patriotism is. Now, patriotism is a feeling of love, and it's a sense of one's attachment to their country or their state. And this attachment can be a whole host of different feelings for things like of the language of someone's country, or their ethnic, cultural, and historical aspects. Now, by this definition, I can say that I am a patriot. Now, I'm not a patriot of the United States, but I am a patriot of my home state, of the state where I was born, where I was raised. I love that state, and I love that people. I love the forest. I love the lands. I love the waters. I love its culture and historical aspects. Right. I love it. And if push came to shove, right, I would defend that state. Right. So that's what patriotism is all about. Now, nationalism, on the other hand, is defined as a loyalty and devotion to a nation, right? And so you can see right there how close those two terms are related. But today, nationalism has gained a more negative connotation due to an excessive nationalism, a chauvinistic nationalist ideology that has really poisoned the minds of Americans in the belief of the superiority and the dominance of the United States and of the American people over all other peoples. Chauvinist American nationalism is patriotism on steroids. And it leads people to believe that the U.S. is the strongest, the most virtuous, most progressive nation on the planet. And whoever challenges that, and whoever challenges that idea, challenges us or challenges those aspects of who we are, they are America's enemies. And this deformed, malevolent nationalism considers others outside of the American plan, of the American ideal, to be weak, to be untrustworthy, or somehow socially, culturally, politically, sometimes racially, and economically inferior to America and Americans. Now, the Encyclopedia Britannica describes chauvinistic nationalism as a form of, and I quote, excessive and unreasonable patriotism and nationalism. It's a fervent faith in American excellence and an American glory. It is real this nationalism that is really toxic nationalism that we're facing now is really it's a dogma and a cult of American supremacy. Now, this nationalistic sickness is serving to divide the country instead of fostering a unity, a social, cultural, or political harmony. And I think that it is this American supremacist fervor that is turning almost half of its citizens away from feelings of patriotism. Now, how can that be? Well, the world is becoming more interconnected than it ever has been before. And Americans have access to a lot more information outside of the United States, right, that's not under the control of the American media and propaganda machine. And so they can see outside of the United States. And there are things that our leaders, our congressional political leaders are telling us that we're finding out are not true. We're seeing things that are happening across the world that differ from the narratives that Americans are being told. And so there's more and more Americans, particularly younger Americans, that are saying, well, this whole America First thing is bullshit. And so that is beginning to really have an effect on how they feel about their country and their citizenship in it. The world has become more interconnected, and the contradictions between the good people and the good things in the other countries of the world and this American belligerence and nationalist arrogance are becoming sharper. Thus, there are more and more Americans who are finally seeing and understanding that the United States isn't, and it doesn't have to be, number one in the world. Now, am I a nationalist? No, I am not a nationalist, because I no longer feel an obligation of loyalty or devotion to the United States. Now, to my family, to my friends, to my community, to my home state, to various groups of people, yes, I do feel loyalty and devotion to them. But to the nation as a whole, absolutely not. I used to feel a measure of pride in the United States. I remember growing up in the Midwest where I'm from, and really feeling that kind of that sort of that giddy feeling that you get in your heart when you see, you hear the patriotic music and the soldiers walking, marching by with the flag, and the parades with the Girl Scouts, and the, and the floats and everything, everything else like that, right? And there was a certain hope and optimism about America. It probably was naive on my part, but hey, I was young. But over the last few decades, that has just evaporated. I'm more inclined now, and this is probably going to make some viewers angry, but I don't care. I can't help how you feel or receive this. I'm just telling you the way that I feel and how I see things. But I'm more inclined now to make apologies for what the United States has been doing in the world over the last 50 years. You see, I face a moral dilemma in loving a nation that is an imperialist, bloodletting global bully. Now, I suppose I could think of it in terms of a personal relationship where I make excuses for an abusive partner or a delinquent child. I could say, oh yeah, I love them in spite of their violence toward me and their crime toward others, right? But I'm not going to say that because I wouldn't. I could say, yes, I love America in spite of its imperialist aggression and its violence, but I'm not going to love such a nation because it's unconscionable to me. It doesn't fit. That kind of devotion and love doesn't fit within my own moral framework and my view of humanity. I want better for the American people. I want my fellow Americans to live in a society where we're free, truly free from exploitation, from degeneration, and from bondage of all types, debt bondage, um, political bondage. You say, well, we don't have political bondage, we get to vote. You're voting, but in many cases, you're being told who to vote for. Right? There's not really political freedom here. It is a sort of a you're being walked down a chute, like you're in a livestock yard. So I want my fellow Americans to be free from bondage of all types. I want my fellow Americans to live in and enjoy a freedom to have the time to realize their fullest personal development, to be free for them to reach their fullest creative and intellectual potential, right? Without having to worry about, oh my God, if I go to college, will I ever find a job in my field? And I'm never going to be able to pay off the student loans that in any other nation I probably wouldn't have to pay back anyway, right? Or you just have to worry about survival. We can't develop intellectually and reach our fullest potential with all of that hanging over our heads. I want my fellow Americans to live in and enjoy a progressive, advanced, clean, decent, and orderly society that's committed to international cooperation and to a peaceful coexistence with other people, other cultures, other nations, where we deal fairly and faithfully with other people and other nations in such a way as there is a mutual benefit. I was thinking the other day about how many treaties that no, I'll tell you, I was reading a book, a biography by General Zhukov, the marshal, Soviet marshal from World War II, and he was talking about the Potsdam Conference and how even right after that conference, America and the Western Allies were beginning to break their agreements. And America is notorious for breaking treaties, for breaking agreements, for reneging on deals, for tearing up these kinds of things and just walking away because for some reason it doesn't fit with this America First policy, this idiotic nationalism, right? I don't want a country like that. I want an America that treats other nations and governments and people fairly and faithfully, and that we keep our word in such a way as there's a mutual benefit. I want my fellow Americans to expel their toxic national chauvinism and to treat other nations and other people with mutual respect and compassion. I want us to be an equal nation, not a dominant one. We don't need to be a dominant one. We can get along just fine without this, without dominating anybody. And if we can't, that says more about us than it does the rest of the world. Alas, the America that I could love will likely remain in the realm of idealism long past my own expiration date. So I wanted to get on and talk with you a little bit about this toxic American chauvinism that I feel is one of the prime causes for leading people to feel much less pride in the nation in which they live in, and much less pride about how this nation works and how we live, move, and have our being within it. I want to thank you as well for watching. I appreciate you very much. Again, you can like the video, share it if you like, helps the algorithm. I'm going to pop on here live from time to time, uh, just with topics that I want to talk about, and I'll try to keep it short. I know I'm coming up on 16 minutes, and that's right about where I want to be on time. So anyway, I hope you have a good long weekend over the 4th of July. Do the things that nurture you, that make you happy, that help you grow, that develop you. Spend time with the people you love. That's so important now, right? And just take some time off, take some downtime, get your rest, do some things that are healthy, meaningful, and help to nurture you. And I hope that I get to see you guys later down the road. All right, I'll have another stream sometime. I hope very, very soon. You take care. I appreciate you.